This is a quick video on how to animate cameras in Unity using some of the procedural systems available. I'm not going to explain all of the different systems that we have to animate cameras. I'm just going to show the ones that are related mostly to cinematics/filmmaking. There are others available that you can use in games and in interactive applications, but these are mostly for filmmaking, if you will. Of course, you can animate cameras in Unity by hand, right? You can do hand animated cameras as you do in any 3D software, just by, taking the camera, framing your shot in the way you want, and creating an animation track that you could do something like this, and then you could just add keyframes as you want, right? So you can say, I want to take, I want to go to frame 150. I want to move my camera here. And then in frame 0, I want my camera there, let's say. So you can do this type of animation, which is just hand animated your cameras as you do in any 3D software. But we're not looking into these today. We just want to animate a camera using procedural systems. Of course, you can import cameras from a different 3D package. You can do your blocking in Maya or in any other software. You can import the cameras in Unity as FBX or Alembic files. And in the same way, you can export cameras from a motion control system or a motion capture of some sort. Again, we're not looking into that today. We just want to look into some of the procedural systems available in Unity. So I'm going to select the main camera. And what we're going to do is we're going to create virtual cameras that belong to the main camera. So in a way, it kind of works like creating different cameras, but they are not really cameras. They are kind of like components of the same camera, the master camera, if you will. So I'm going to select my main camera. By the way, it can be any camera. So if you have multiple cameras in your hierarchy, in your scene, you can select any camera. But in my case, I'm just going to select my main camera. And now I can go to the inspector and I can add a component. And I'm going to add a cinemachine brain. This is the component that is going to be used by the virtual cameras in order to know what they should be doing. So I'm going to take the main camera now. I'm going to drag and drop into the timeline. And in this case, I'm not going to create an animation track as I did before, as you will do for hand animating your cameras. I'm just going to add a cinematic track. And this cinematic track, of course, it is empty, it doesn't have any clips, so we don't have any camera animation here. We need to create a clip, an animation clip for the camera. So I'm just going to right click here in the track in my timeline, and I'm going to create a cinemachine shot. And of course I can move this anywhere. I can control the length, the speed, and everything that you do with clips. Nothing still happens because this one, it is just a container. It doesn't have any information. And as you can see, it is complaining. It gives you a warning message here. And this is because it needs to use a virtual camera. You can select any virtual camera from the scene, but we don't have one yet. But if you had a virtual camera or multiple virtual cameras, you can select it here. In our case, we don't have a virtual camera yet, so we need to create a new virtual camera. And as you can see, this guy is not complaining anymore because now it has a virtual camera. of course, that virtual camera, it is not animated yet, so it is not moving at all. As you can see in the hierarchy, now we have a virtual camera that you can rename if you want to. I'm just gonna leave the name here, but of course you can name this to whatever, the name of your shot or the name of your scene or whatever naming convention you use. So again, we have a main camera with a cinemachine brain, which is a component for the camera. Then we created a cinemachine shot, a cinemachine track, and in this track we're using a virtual camera that we just created here. Okay, so now with the virtual camera selected, what we would do, we would frame the shot. So I don't know, let's frame my shot. I don't know. Let me do something where I see my entire character. I want to, yeah, something like that. It's not a big deal, really. Okay, so this is my shot. Of course, when you're framing the shot, you are seeing it in the game window. Maybe a little bit more from the side. I just want to have, I mean, I don't really care about making a nice shot. Of course, I just want to have, I just want to frame the entire character so we can see clearly the animation of the camera. Okay, so again, no animation, we just frame the shot. So with the virtual camera selected here in the hierarchy, I'm going to drag and drop the object that I want to follow into the follow option of the camera. This camera essentially, it has the same options as the main camera, so position, rotation, and scale. Then we have the components from the actual virtual camera here. Sorry, not the components, the settings or the options of the virtual camera here. And then we can change the focal, we can change the clip planes, we can change pretty much anything. So this would be overriding whatever settings we have in the main camera, okay? Because as you can see, the main camera cannot be tweaked anymore because it's been overridden by the virtual camera. If we don't change anything, it's going to inherit the properties from the main camera, which is great. It's a nice feature. Okay, so again, I'm not gonna show you everything you can do with virtual cameras and with cinemachine. It is something we can expand in the future, but for now, we just want to show you some of the procedural camera movements that you can do with cinemachine and virtual cameras. And those are basically looking at objects automatically or procedurally, if you will, following objects and doing a dolly track shot. Okay, these three options. Again, you can do many of the things, but I consider that those are the things that you can do with cinemachine. They are more related to games or interactive applications. Again, in my case, I'm only looking at this from a point of view of filmmaking. So basically, I want this camera to follow the character as it moves. So I don't have to animate my camera by hand because now this character is here. It is in idle mode, it is breathing, but at some point starts walking and it goes out of frame. So I want to do the animation automatically. So what I need is something in the look at option here, an object to look at. So I'm gonna go to my character, and here it would be better if we had a specific object to look at. So I'm gonna select the entire character, but it depends on the pivot point and other things. So I'm not sure if this is gonna work straight away, but let's have a look. So I'm gonna drag and drop my character into the look at field here. Okay, nothing happened yet because we need to change a couple of settings here. So if I go to the aim, it is doing nothing. So that's why the camera is doing nothing. So let me change aim to composer. And now it has changed, right? It has changed. So now it is actually looking at the character. But again, because the pivot point of this character is here in the origin, it is looking there. So maybe there is another object that I can choose to follow, maybe the hips. There you go. So the hips, it's better for this character because it's kind of in the center of the character. But you know, if we want to look at the head, the problem is that, of course, this is just one single geometry, so there is no head really. It's just the entire body, and the body has the pivot point in the origin. So if we had a helmet or sunglasses or something like that, we can use that. And of course, we could have exported from the software where we animated this character some kind of controller to follow, like a null or like a dummy object in the right position. But the hips will do. So now when we play, as you can see, our camera is following the character. It is, sorry, not following the character. It is looking at the character at any given time. So we play, and this is working. Okay, fantastic. I'm not gonna dig very deep into this, but as you can see here, now we have options like offset, for example. So we can offset that position in any axis. So if we want to look, because the hips, again, the object that we're looking at, which is the hips, is here in the center. So if we want to offset that, we can just move this maybe there to the neck. So now when we play, because we offset that object, it is actually looking there. So yeah, this feature is very useful. And then we had other options that, again, you can explore yourself, because this is mostly playing with them and feeling them to see what they do. But as you can see, we have like a damping. Depending on, well, yeah, basically you can control the damping of the camera. So it will start to do weird things if you don't know what you're doing. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time with these, but then you can offset as well. So you can, offset the entire thing in X or Y, and it will do the same. It will follow, but having that screen offset. So depending on what you're doing, depending on what you're doing, you might find these parameters useful. Then we have the dead zone and the soft zone. This is very useful because you can basically expand the area of following. So if I do that, the character is always in the shot, but if we do that, then the camera is not going to follow until it's actually out of frame. So maybe we can play a little bit with the dead zone like that. Okay, so that it will change the way that the camera actually behaves. So these are basically like margins. If you think of tracking features in Nuke or any other software, this would be the area where it's actually looking at the character. Well, because it is in the middle, of course, it's not going to affect that much because it's always in frame. But maybe, I don't know, maybe we can offset this guy. And yeah, I mean, these are like safety margins, if you will. Okay, so by doing that, you can make sure that the safety margin, yeah, as you can see there, it is not actually, you need to play this to see it well. Until the character reaches the frame, it doesn't start to follow. Yeah. So let's make these bigger. And now the camera doesn't start to follow until the character reaches the safety margin. So if we want the camera to start following this character straight away, we better do something like that. And now it makes a little bit more sense. Okay. Great. There is an option here to add noise. We can expand on this at a different time, but basically we can add like, different type of noise, shake. We can do like a handheld type of noise. So if we do like handheld normal, for example. By the way, if you don't like to see these helpers, maybe you can use, oops, sorry. You can use, I think it's hard look at, there you go. And then you have exactly the same, but without those safety margins. I mean, they are still there if you need them, but you're just not looking at them. And yeah, I don't know if you noticed, but now we have a noise. Let's make this noise strong so it's more visible. There you go. So now you have noise, and the camera is following. Okay, cool. I'm going to say none and keep this one there. And now we don't have any noise. Okay, so this is the look at option of the camera. Let's take a look now at the follow option. So I'm gonna get rid of this one, or, well, I can mute it. Let me just delete this one. And well, the camera is still doing the thing because of course the virtual camera is doing that. So let's mute this one, and well, we could potentially disable that camera, and now this is not working. But what we can do is we can just create a different track with a different camera. So I'm going to add another cinemachine track with my main camera. And I'm going to create, well, actually, let's do this. I'm going to delete this one. I'm going to unmute this one. So now we still have that. So let's combine maybe two cameras to make it a little bit more interesting. So I'm going to create another cinemachine shot. Going to put it here. And let's create a new camera, a new virtual camera for this shot. So I'm going to create a new camera. Now we have a new camera here. Okay, let's follow this. Let's frame the shot. So I'm going to do something like that. This is something like that. So let's say that we want to go from here, and then from here, we want to look at the character this way, and then we want to follow the character. So now we can select the second virtual camera, the new virtual camera that we just created here in the hierarchy. And now if we go to the inspector, instead of using the look at, we're going to use the follow option. So let's take the hips again and drag and drop here to follow. And again, nothing really happens because we need to tweak a couple of things here. What we need to tweak is instead of the aim, which is what we tweaked before when using the follow option, actually, if I do something here, it says look at target is required. And we don't have one, so that's what it's complaining. So this is just for the look at option. For the follow, we need to use the body. So here in the body, let's use frame transposer. So now the framing or the composition of the shot has changed a little bit. And that is because the actual options of the body section. Oops, this one should be 0.5. Okay. But now the camera is actually following the character. We can play with options here, like we have an offset here that we can play with. We have also damping, and we have the same options as we had before. This camera distance is important because by default it's set 10. So it is 10 units apart from the character. That's why the camera is so far away. If you move the camera, you're actually, as you can see, tweaking the actual offset. So that is probably not what you want. So what you want to do in this case, if we want to get closer to the character, is to decrease this camera distance. So I'm just basically doing that. Oops, sorry, the hips. Okay, there you go. So now it is following the character properly. So now we're combining two clips with two different procedural animation cameras, where the first one, it is like that, and the second one, it is following the character. So we have a follow at, and then we have, we have a look at in the first shot, and in the second shot we have a following. So it is following the character. And again, feel free to experiment with all these controls to set your shot in the manner that you want. We also have noise here if we want to. Same thing, right? We can add handheld strong. Let's play the animation. There you go. So this one has a little bit of noise now. Noise, of course, can be independently controlled by camera, because remember, what we're doing here is to the second virtual camera. So each virtual camera has all these options that can be controlled per shot. Great. Let's take a look now at how to create a tracking shot. So I'm going to mute all of these, and we still have, the cameras. So of course it's still going to work. Well, it is not working. It is only working whatever camera is active, which is the second virtual camera. So of course the first clip, the first shot that we had here, it doesn't work anymore because the only activated camera is actually working in the scene. So I'm gonna mute these, or actually, you know what? Let me delete all of that. Let me delete these two virtual cameras, and now the only thing we have is a static camera, the one we started with, which is the main camera. Okay, this is the only camera doing anything at all in the scene. So to create a track shot or a tracking shot, we can go to Game Object, Cinemachine, and then we can create dolly camera with track. There you go. And This again created a new virtual camera, but it also created something called dolly track, which kind of represents a dolly track on set, right? This will be the railing of the track from point A to point B. And the camera is at the beginning of the dolly. So as a starting point, of course, now you need to frame your shot as you would always do. To do that, the only thing you can control now, if I take my camera, if I try to move it, as you can see, it doesn't even enable the handles. I cannot move the camera anymore because the camera, it is constrained to the dolly. So the only thing that I can actually tweak here, it is the rotation. So I should be able to rotate the camera, as you can see here, but not actually to move it. So let's do this. Let's set this one to maybe, okay, I want the camera to point into that direction. And again, to control the position, I need to position my dolly. So I'm gonna select my dolly object and I'm going to move it. Let's say here. Okay. Maybe a little bit farther away, and I'm going to select my camera and maybe point the character something like that, and the dolly something like that. And as you can see, the dolly has two controls. The first one controls the first point of the dolly, or the beginning of the dolly, and the second one is where the dolly ends. So my character, let's say, finishes walking somewhere around there. So I'm gonna set my second dolly point somewhere around here. So the track, my railing goes from here to there. Great. So this is the beginning of my shot, and that would be the end of my shot. Maybe we want to make this a little bit bigger so it doesn't go outside of the floor. When you select the dolly track, you can see here it has waypoints. So waypoints are basically the beginning, which is the 0 point, and the end, which is the 1 point. You could potentially add more waypoints here. In case you want the dolly to do something else, because you can do things like that, right? We have this type of railings on set. But in my case, let's make this a little bit simplistic. Let's pretend there is only like a starting point and end point. Well, maybe now we can go a little bit farther away, something like that. Okay, great. Let's select the virtual camera here in the hierarchy. And now, if we go to the inspector, we have an option that we didn't have before, which is the position on the dolly. So let's expand this. Wait a second. Let's expand the body. And as you can see, the body has been already set up automatically to track dolly, instead of, for example, before we used the frame transposer, right? But this one is automatically set already as a track dolly. So if we expand this, we have the path position. So this one, take a look here at the scene view. We can move the camera across the dolly. So we're moving the camera from point 0 to point 1. Okay, so we can animate that path position as we want. So let's take this virtual camera, drag and drop here, and let's create an animation track. There you go. Now, let's click on record with the camera selected. Let's go to here, which is the end of the animation, and take the path position, let's say here, to the final point. Great. And now let's go to the frame 0, or actually not frame 0, because this guy is starting to walk here. So here, let's take this guy and move it, yeah, let's say to 0. There you go. Right, so what we do have now, it is the camera staying there, and as the character walks, we have our tracking shot. Okay, maybe it's, it's getting a little bit closer. So what we can do, we can play with different things here. For example, the offset, right? So let's maybe do something like that. So we don't have any issues anymore. We can do that, or we can also play with the path position. Instead of going all the way up to 1, we can maybe set it to 0.9 or something. But I think the offset will do. Let's take a look. So the character stays in place, and now we have our tracking happening. Okay. All right, might not be the most beautiful shot ever, but it works. You get the idea, okay? Then you can do better with your own shots. Okay, so let's stop the recording, and now this has been recorded, and we have our thing here. I actually didn't like this very much, so I'm gonna set this one back to 0, and maybe what we can do here. It is something like that. There you go. So now it works a little bit better, right? Let's play everything. Okay, great. You can combine this with a cinemachine shot as well in the same manner that we did before. So, well, I shouldn't have deleted the one that I had, but let's do it again. So if we create a cinemachine track here, now we can add a cinematic shot. Oh, I removed the cameras before. Well, anyway, you get the idea. Now you can select the virtual camera here. And now this is, well, this is just a track here. So if we had the previous clip where we were looking at a different thing, we would have it here, and then we would link it, or we would switch to the next shot, which is a tracking shot. Great. So let's get rid of this one. Actually, you know what? I want to show you. So let's do it again. So I'm going to create, I'm going to go to my, let's get rid of this. Let's create a cinematic shot. This one, I'm going to create a new virtual camera. Let's do something like that. Maybe a little bit closer. Yeah, something of that nature. Okay, so we have this thing. Remember what we did before? We had Yeah, let's do this. Let's select the virtual camera. Let's go to the look at, and let's take the hips. Let's say the aim to composer. Okay, so now we're looking at the hips, and then we are kind of following this guy. Let's play with the offset a little bit. Something of that nature. So we have a little bit more perhaps. Yeah. So we have this, and when it starts walking, let's add another cinemachine shot and select the tracking. Oops, sorry. Select the tracking virtual camera, which is that one, which is tracking, right? Cool. So now we are cutting from this shot where we're using a look at function and then a tracking function here. So this is basically how you combine cameras using cinemachine, but in this case with a tracking camera. Okay, cool. There is another nice feature in the dolly tracking camera. So let me delete this. I'm gonna delete all of this actually. So now we're back to the boring scene where we have the camera doing nothing. Okay, so I'm gonna create another cinemachine dolly track with camera, dolly camera with track. And again, we have the dolly and we have this guy. So let's take the dolly and position this again. From here to there, maybe let's add another one, which is going to be, well, I cannot really do this. I mean, I can, but of course the character is going straight. So it's not following the track. The camera will follow the track. But yeah, let's do that. And now maybe let's do something like that. Okay. Let's frame the shot. Okay, something like that. Let's take the dolly. Let's do something like that. Okay, cool. So instead of animating the camera using the path position as we did before, we can procedurally animate the camera through the waypoints. So let's take the camera. And again, if we go to body, this is already set up automatically to track the dolly. And if we animate the path position, this will go through the waypoints. Again, if you don't want to do that manually, like animating this in a tracking clip, in an animation clip here in the timeline, you can do that procedurally. So in the body, we can go to auto dolly and we can enable this. And this is a combination of a tracking shot and a follow at option. So as you can see, as soon as I enable auto dolly, I get this auto dolly requires a follow target. So let's select the hips again and assign this to look at. There you go. So now, still nothing happens. Oh, sorry, because I assigned this to the follow at, no the follow. There you go. So now it is following the hips, as you can see, along the dolly. But of course we have an issue, and it's that it is already positioned on the hips, which is not great because we don't see the character. So what we can do here, we can play with with the offsets, of course. And as you can see, the path position is being automatically animated. So now we can play with the offset a little bit. Let's do something like that. And now this is automatically animated and looking at the character all the time. And as you can see at the end, you know, still looking at the hips, but following the track, which is what we want. Maybe we can make this a little bit more evident by doing something like that. Okay, let's do that. So it's following the hips with an offset. The character moves. It follows the track, but always looking at the hips. Okay, great. And of course, we can always do this, create a cinemachine track, create a cinemachine shot, and select here this virtual camera, and we can use this to compose, you know, a sequence combining different shots. So this is it about camera animation or procedural camera animation in Unity. Again, there are others. If you go to Game Object, Cinemachine, you have virtual camera, you have free look camera, you have a state-driven camera, which is great for games especially, or animated things of different nature. I mean, there are multiple ones. But again, these three that I show you are the ones that I consider most useful for filmmaking. So this was it.